So the first track, Spit It Out, and we wrote it in a practice room or studio called the Doghouse. I feel like we might have written the idea before, but that's where it properly got penned. Doghouse was an interesting little studio out in the country, like near Reading, I think. We met a man at the pub named Barry. It was Barry, wasn't it?
Was it?
Anyway, he was a very influential man for us. He was very funny, kept buying us drinks, real old boy. He didn't influence us, in a comedy way, just getting us really smashed every night.
Yeah.
When we were meant to be working, we were
Which
going...
must have had influence on the writing of the music if he was getting us tanked up every night.
Yeah, it was one of those tracks as well, when you wrote it, it just felt like it was going to be a single. It almost, for me, as soon as we'd written it, it felt obvious that that was the first single.
Hypnotised is a track that is basically does what it says in the tin, is influenced by people being hypnotised by
Makes me
TV.
think of the Demon Headmaster. Do you remember that TV show?
Yeah, and just like shit reality TV that everyone's so obsessed with, other people's lives and
We're all busy
towns that you've never been to that you're like obsessed with.
staring at
I can't get my head
screens.
around it. It's very strange. Musically, I think it's kind of in the
It's really-
same vein.
It's really bluesy, like...
But it's in the same vein in terms of like, it sounds to me like something we would write like a few years ago.
Straight up punk banger.
Straight up punk bangers.
Consume or Be Consumed. It's a rap song and Mike D is on it. It was the last song that got put on the album, so it was going to be a B-side. It just didn't work out. I actually think we were going to leave it to a future album, but then Mike sort of took the album away, and as a rap song we thought it was going to be the one that he really liked, and it wasn't, and we were kind of shocked. And then after about a month of us finishing the recording process and it being mixed and stuff, he rang me and he was like, my kids love this song, I think we need to revisit it. And he stopped by London for one day where we got half of the day with him, and we were like, let's finish this track. And there was a big instrumental section at the end, and I just went, do you want to rap on it? Just that had been our goal from the beginning. I was like, even if it was a B-side, could we get Mike D to rap on a Slave song? And I think, a few beers later, I just went, we rap on our album? And he just went, yeah, sure. And we were just like, whoa. So yeah, it felt like a bucket list thing to do.
I don't remember writing Take Control. Actually, no, I do.
I remember being on a plane talking about the idea.
We'd just written
Title track.
We'd just written Hypnotised, and I thought I didn't have any lyrics left, so I just write it down. So I started writing down lyrics that I thought just were a bit shit and just like throw away. And then I just started shouting them to Laurie, and I was like, what do you think of these? And he was like, I think it's wicked.
Yeah, Take Control, Hypnotised, Spit It Out, a track that didn't even get recorded. There are sort of like, when we write songs, they sort of work in like periodic sort of times, and like there were 3 songs that were pre-writing. There were these songs from the Doghouse and then some songs from somewhere else. All of the Doghouse session, Isaac just didn't like any of his lyrics. So I spent about a year convincing him that these are really, really good, we should use them. And then he didn't listen to me, and to the point of like the last tracks to be put down in the studio. And he's like, I need to redo all the lyrics. And I think some of them got a little bit of a retouch, but me and Mike managed to convince him. I think it was, you were very hard on yourself lyrically, this album.
Oh, here he is, Mr. Industry. Oh, I fucking hate the industry that much, yeah, we'll do ya. Yeah.
Mr. Industry is Ollie Walton being very annoyed at Isaac.
He was some people might know him as our manta ray, and he was also our merch man for a long time. And it was after the Mercury Awards, and I was supposed to meet him and a few of my other mates in a pub around the corner afterwards. And I think I got caught up in it all and just ended up, I didn't meet them, and then later on I got a voicemail on my phone, and it was Ollie very drunk and annoyed at me, so we thought we'd put it on the album. We're both like really big like hip hop fans, and like I remember being obsessed with like Marshall Mathers LP, Slim Shady LP. Like I love Eminem, and we both just love the idea of having skits, and especially as like separate tracks.
Yeah, so we sort of did skits on the last album, but didn't call them skits.
Yeah, we just like on the starts and ends of tracks, and I think this time we wanted to actually like differentiate and have them as like their own
track
entities. Yeah,
and also for music enjoyment, sometimes it's annoying when you have to listen to a skit to get to a song. So I think it's almost better for the listener to be able to skip it. Like, how many times do you need to listen to Mr. Industry? I only, and then when you do like can't skip it, the skits are even funnier. When you have to listen to Paul's skit on every Eminem album.
He's been dying since the day he was born. Boxes of watches that have never been worn.
Yeah, Rich Man definitely reminds me of Country House by Blur. I think Rich Man's just this, he's not a real person, obviously, he's not inspired, but he's, yeah. And it was sort of at a time where me and Isaac were both sort of realising the benefits of being vegan and the destruction of the meat industry, and then David Cameron's offshore fund, which like to most people is a criminal offence, and he just pushed under the carpet. And so we're in this like quite industrial, grimy studio, practice room even in Bromley, wasn't it? And we just were like bouncing off each other ideas, and it's this sort of, I don't know, I think it's a bit more of an extreme take on Country House by Blur. Definitely a homage, but it's like, you know, the lyrics are so, they paint such a mental image of sucking the marrow out of blood-soaked bones. Like, I love that phrase. Just this guy that just doesn't care about anything or anyone. Just, that's the sort of theme of the record though, like consume or be consumed. It's kind of like that guy just taking advantage of everything. Play Dead.
Yeah, just like everybody, I don't know, it's kind of a thing that's been running through our music for a little while, just everyone just glued to their phones, being so, you're so connected at all times. Like apparently like sleep disorders are like well on the up, and like one of the main reasons is because you've just got your phone like next to your head, and subconsciously you know that you're so connected to the world that you're just like, how do you ever like shut off?
Yeah, my phone was buzzing at 4 AM this morning, and
Yeah.
it was my friend that lives in New Zealand, but then like my fiance was like, why is your phone going off at 4 in the morning? And I'm like, is it my phone, is it your phone? And then we're talking at 4 in the morning.
The only words in the verses are too connected, disconnected, because it kind of feels like that's how it is, that we're so connected that we are disconnected.
And that was when like me and Mike D came in and were like, Isaac, let's write some more lyrics. And we spent like a whole day just like hammering away at that song. It was like really intense, and that's where like Play Dead came into it. Sort of the idea of like a dog just rolling over and playing dead in this kind of, yeah, I think people play dead and like pretend they don't understand a lot of things today. Lies is a song that's like really influenced by other bands. So we've been talking about Gang of Four a lot, and we actually wrote it in the studio. And there's an element of like growing up a bit and not being as like angry, and not, sometimes you'll be on stage and you'll play songs so fast that, you know, you're out of breath, and like I really wanted to write a song we could enjoy playing, and like there was a bit more musical, and that sort of interaction in Gang of Four, like that Entertainment album, between like the bass and the guitar, that's what I was trying to like mimic, but just with a guitar. So we were jamming in the control room, and I was like dun, 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 and they were like, what are you playing? And we were just like, oh, we're just jamming. And they were like, record it. And it was just one of those songs that just really naturally came about. One of the lighter songs on the record, but with some of the heaviest subject matter, I reckon.
It was written like shortly after the UK had gone ahead and decided to bomb Syria. And it was like, it was just a bit of a weird time. Like we were in the States and we heard about all this shit that was going on back home.
And I walked in with a Facebook article. I'm all right. It wasn't
About, like,
Facebook, but it was
airstrikes.
like one that I'd seen through Facebook about like the UK voting to not allow 5,000 orphan Syrian refugees into our country. And we were just like, wow, that's dark. How, like, you know, we're going to decide to bomb them, and then, you know, people are like, oh, it's not our problem, but it's like,
You just deprive them of their like fucking homes.
and that could happen to us, and then like to think that our orphan children wouldn't be allowed into another country, in the grand scheme of things, 5,000 innocent kids isn't a lot, is it? So yeah, I think we were just both really just like in disbelief about what's going on. We're not really, and that, you know, it's a hard subject to talk about. You leave yourself open to quite a lot of criticism, but everything going on in the world at the moment isn't very human. We're all just humans at the end of the day.
Fuck the hi-hat! Fuck the hi-hat! Fuck the hi-hat! Fuck the hi-hat!
Fuck the hi-hat. It's one of those things, like, the way we came about is actually different to a lot of bands. There are some bands, you know, that come up and, you know, they uploaded their demos and then they got signed, and we did like so much touring around shit venues, and like to the point of where, like, if someone's heckling you, they're so loud that you just have to engage in it. And
Yeah.
where's your fucking hi-hat? And like, where's your bassist? And all of these things would just crop up all the time. And I just think it's just a homage to our early days of being a band and just being like, fuck the hi-hat.
I miss the hecklers.
Yeah.
You can't hear them anymore in these big venues.
The person trying to contact you is standing outside. Outside, bro. You can't get through on your phone, though. Please spell out when you get this. 1 minute outside. To that. Got
Gary Salvin, shout out.
He's a great friend of ours from Birmingham. He's been there from the very start, and basically we just played a gig there at some point last year, and we were hanging out before the gig, and then we'd all got smashed together, and then he tried to call me after the gig to meet him again, and that is just that voicemail.
I don't
He's
even
got-
understand what it's from,
He's just
or
got
like.
he's just got the most brilliant voice and accent. It's
But
just
what
like-
I just can't, because I've tried to ask you about it and you don't know, but like, has he rung off of like a phone that's attached to the venue, or?
Nah.
Because it says the person trying to contact you is outside.
He's just-
Like, where
I
does
think
that come
He's
from?
just fucking about, I think. Like,
Well, you think that's his voice?
that is his voice. It's him doing an American accent, and then he goes, outside, bro.
I thought that was like a payphone.
No,
that- 'cause
that's
it goes-
him. That's his
Oh, sick, really?
Yeah.
I want to listen to it. You got it now?
voice.
We'll
On my phone.
afterwards.
I feel like shit.
The people that you meet, it's all about literally just people that we met on the road.
That whole tour was such a daze, and it was meant to be a skit, and it was like Joel and Isaac. Like I'm the sort of like one that likes to work, and I thrive off just, you know, I'm always happiest when I'm like creating, and like Isaac and Joel just went out partying, and I was like, remember we got to be in the studio tomorrow? And like Isaac left at like 7, and we'd been staying there till like midnight. And so like they turn up the next day, and like they're just both still drunk, and I was just determined to get this song done. And I'm just standing there. I felt like a composer. I was standing in the control room whilst they were doing their drum takes, going, like trying to get them to do it. And that's why the first line is, I feel like shit, because Isaac was so hungover. Like,
Because it got to the evening by then, and I'd sobered up, and I was just like lying on the sofa. I remember you and Mike just like pretty much just picking me up, just going like, go and do it, like do your vocals, we need to finish this.
I remember sitting around in the studio talking about like the people we'd met, and I was like, you've got to do a Mike verse, you've got to do a Mike verse. And Isaac was like, oh, I'm not sure, is it cringy, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, and he just told me the previous one, and I was like, how about, he like said, I know a man called Michael, and I was like, something NYC. Left the room, came back, and he's doing his vocal takes, and it's just like, used to be a Beastie Boy and now he works for me. And I was just like, and Mike, I said to Mike, I was like, are you annoyed that he's so hungover and not doing the takes? And he was like, I'm not annoyed, but that take was so shit that I'm annoyed. And he just went on, he pressed the button and was like, if you're going to take the piss out of me, at least put some fucking effort into it.
Initially, Baxter mentioned us on a Six Music programme.
Could have even been Round Table or something.
I can't remember what it was, but and then we got to talking to him. I can't exactly remember how. I think we wanted to put one of his songs or something like that, wasn't it?
And it's worth mentioning, when we started the band in 2012, he just released Happy Soup, and Isaac's mum introduced us to it because Six Music play it a lot, and we had it on repeat in the car all the time. So we're like the biggest Baxter Jury fans. And so when we heard him mention us, we fanboyed quite a lot. And then he did a Rough Trade in-store for the new It's a Pleasure album. And then like we went up to him afterwards, like for him to sign our CDs, and I was like, oh, we're in Slaves, by the way. Then we just swapped numbers, and then a few months later we were in the studio and we were like, do you want to come hang out? And we had Steer Clear already written, and we were just like, do you want to sing this verse? We were talking about making a side project, but then we just realised how hard it would be to actually do a side project at the time, and we weren't sure that song was going to go on the record. We were playing our A&R guy our album, and we were like going through B-sides, and I was like, this would be a sick B-side. Played it, and everyone just looked at each other like, we need to put this on the record. And then Mike D was like, I love it, and I think the album needs it, like it's 100% amazing song. I'm just really pissed off that I didn't record it.
Oh, work for nothing.
Cold Hard Floor, it was the first track I think that I've ever written, well, you've ever written the bass line to.
Yeah.
And so we swapped roles, and I think I sang like the first line,
and I was just like, that's sick.
and then he just took it, and I was just like, yes, and I was like, your bass sounds sick. And so then I jumped on a guitar and put like a solo in, and it just felt really nice to write something in a different format. We're big fans of people like Nick Cave, and that song for me or like Tom Waits, even like the Waterboys, just that more like, do you know what I mean? It's got that sort of like deeper, it just feels like a rock song.
STDs, PhDs.
It's definitely influenced by Public Image Limited as well, surely.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to give a shout out to Pill on this
It's
track.
just like, yeah, it's like a collage of thoughts, like each line is sort of like something different. It's a bit like weird and mixed up.
It was also really directly influenced by our sort of live lounge with Skepta, and there are some collaborations that sort of happened that have never come out, and we wanted to write some music that was more electronic but still perform live. So the song is actually like Isaac on a drum machine and like a drum pad and me on a synth, and it was all still live when we demoed it, so it was still like classic how we write but with different instrumentation. And I really wanted to get on keyboards, and there was like 3 or 4 songs like this, and I really had to like persist to get one of them on the album, because I think where we started from it was going to be a pure guitar-based album, and I just came up with that sound by like playing with effects on like Logic and GarageBand, and we played it to Mike, and he was just like, this needs to be on the album. And it was just really cool to I love the idea of being like playing those notes live in a big room. It's just going to be like such a difference to like when we play our normal songs.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I think everyone knows an Angelica if you're in a
If you're in a band,
if you're in
yeah.
a band that's got like any sort of success, whether it be a tiny bit or a lot. I think you've definitely come across an Angelica before. It's just like someone who's a bit of a leech, just like clinger on, loves the boys in the band sort of thing.
And we were both, I was talking about this earlier, we were both really injured at this point, writing the album. Like, I had a broken wrist and didn't realise it, so my wrist was like completely swollen, but I was still writing songs. And Isaac had just had an operation, so we were kind of like, I was playing my guitar like sideways, and Isaac couldn't really smash the drums up. So we were sort of experimenting with slower. That's when Play Dead came about as well, because it's a much slower song. And Angelica was almost like just a calm one, and Isaac jumped on the bass. You know, it's sort of a homage to bands like, you know, like Smiths and all those indie bands like Libertines that we both like, Jamie T, and a little guitar solo. It's kind of tongue-in-cheek as well. Like there's the laugh at the end, which I'm really I'm really fond of. We wrote that track in Pittsburgh in a sound check.
Yeah, because I already had the lyrics for it, so it's just really quick to write. We wrote it in Pittsburgh in the sound check.
Yeah, I just started playing
minutes.
the riff, and then Isaac just went, and within 5 minutes we just had the song.
Done, yeah.
And then we spent the rest of the sound check practicing it.
Just growing up in a small town, and there's like that one club in the town that everyone goes to at the weekend. It's kind of like written about that. Everyone working hard all week and then going and having the same shitty night in the local nightclub.
Bar Fusion.
Which I've had many of those nights and I wouldn't change it for the world. I love it.
But it's not a way to live, in my opinion. It's just existing.
No, but I'm glad I've got those memories.
Yeah, to write about.